The Patriots may have had the upset of the season, and the Giants, well, they upset everybody and all of their fans. All of that and more here on the Gridiron. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Gridiron, brought to you by House Call Sports. I'm Justin, here with our founder, Rob, as well as T, our fellow Patriots fans over here, and we'll be talking some Week 1 NFL action. We're going to talk about how the Patriots managed to get this win over Cincinnati and how the Giants managed to blow it against the Minnesota Vikings. And then we're going to throw in some Thursday night football action for Week 2. But before we get into all that, a quick word from our sponsors at Vivid Seats, the most trustworthy and easy to navigate ticketing website that has reliable and rewarding tickets and a 100% buyer guarantee, which means your transactions will always be safe and secure. You will get full service customer care and be compensated for any canceled events. And it's got the only ticket rewards program around. We are in NFL regular season action. We are coming towards the end of the MLB season. We're going into NBA soon, NHL soon. So any tickets, any games that you're trying to see, go with Vivid Seats to get your tickets. Do us a favor, hit that link down in the description below and go sit vividly. Guys, it's great to have both of y'all on here because I need to know how in the world did the Patriots manage to pull off a 16-10 victory over the Cincinnati Bengals. And it looked a lot worse for the Bengals than what this score actually shows. Because all I managed to see was that Patriots defense do what I have seen it do for years, and that is shut offenses down, no matter what lack of talent people think that they have. So, Rob, I'm going to start with you. How did they manage to pull this off?
Well, when you have what I said with Patriots Global on the live on YouTube is that this defense is very opportunistic, and what I mean by that is they don't really. If you go look at some of the plays that they made, whether it be Kyle Duggar in the end zone punching the football out of Mike Gesicki's hands, or I don't know who the tight end is for the Bengals that was about to cross the line of scrimmage, the very freaking not the line of scrimmage, the line that goes into the end zone, and then we go and Duggar goes and punches it out again. First of all, I think that the Bengals overlooked the Patriots. I think that they thought that this was going to be a cakewalk like everybody else, all the media pundits. You go look at Dan Orlovsky, Mina Kimes, Ryan Clark, all these guys that just completely doubted it. And you know what? Maybe some of the Bengals heard that. But I will say this. Go looking at the Patriots defense when you have no Matthew Judon, but you have Christian Gonzalez back. And to replace Matthew Judon, you got a star in the making in Keon White. 2.5 sacks. This boy is going to be a problem. And not only is he doing that against, I think, a really good tackle in Trent Brown, who should have been motivated to go against his previous team. And when he's at his motivated level, he performs, and it just didn't look – he kind of ran right by him. This defense – in general, if they can stay healthy, is going to be game wreckers. And what John Jones said before the game is that this team's going to destroy a lot of dreams. Going to be a dream wrecker throughout the rest of the regular season. Everybody's doubting us. Everybody's doubting us. Nobody's going to think this team's going to win any games. And because of this defense, if they can get any semblance of an offense going, they're going to cause problems for the rest of the NFL.
Oh, T, you got something to say? You want to add on to that?
Oh, absolutely. Shout out to Vegas. They had our over-under at 4.5, and we're 3 games away after 1 week. So that just goes to show that when they look at the optics from the lens of their own expectancy, they fail to understand the systems that have already been implemented and put in place. You have a Gerard Mayo who's played with this team for nearly a decade, a guy that doesn't just know the system as a coach, but knows it as a player, a defensive player that makes him a defensive-minded coach. You got these guys that understand the importance of solidifying a strong defense. We know that if it were up to the NFL, it would be offensive shootouts. Every year they make more rules, making it extremely difficult for defensive players to simply defend. You can't hit too high at the flag. You can't hit too low as a flag. You can't, drop your hips anymore. You don't have any leverage when it comes to tackling. So they're continuously doing things to make the game less fun for defenses. And even still, sorry if you hit my baby, even still, we enjoy the fact that somehow, I remind people, last year the Patriots went on a 3-game stretch. We lost all 3 of those games, but in those 3 games, we gave up a total of 26 points. Belichick still put a system in place that understands defense still matters. And so we were able to limit the defense by putting the best player on the sideline for over half the game, and that is a Joe Burrow. We controlled the tempo. We controlled the time of possession. Whenever the best player is on the sideline, the odds of you winning, just statistically, they increase. And so by keeping Joe Burrow limited, by keeping the play calls limited, it still shocks me, Rob, that without a T. Higgins, with the limited Jamar Chase, without a Joe Mixon, right, without a DJ Reader, their biggest pass rusher of last year, they were still favored by 8.5. So for whatever godforsaken reason, they looked at this team and did not see the fact that we would come in and implement a new system early. They thought that there would be a lot more growing pains than there were. And ultimately, the Patriots did what they do best, and that's show up when they need to and prove the people wrong.
And this is why I love having Patriots fans and talking about Patriots games, because I'm not going to lie, the defense did put in work. I was just looking at the numbers for Cincinnati in this game, and it kind of astounds me when you think about the kind of offense that they have on paper versus what they actually performed. Third down efficiency, they went 4 of 11. That is less than 40% on third down. 0 for 1 on fourth down. But this is the one that really shocks me. 224 yards of total offense in this game. And when you talk about a team that has Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, you don't expect that. You expect double those numbers in a game. So I'm going to ask y'all both this, and then I'll give my 2 cents on it. Is it time to panic already for the Cincinnati Bengals?
Yes, it is 100% time to panic. You have 2 receivers that want to get paid. You have an offensive line that I think is kind of shaky. On top of that, if you can't get anything going, or they could figure out how to bracket everything go as far as like your receivers and limit your receivers. I mean, it's a thing when you're not getting practice reps. You can't just step out there and expect to just go out and perform. And these cornerbacks in the NFL, they're all good, but one in particular I have to point out, and I know this is a little bit kind of sidetracking. I might be glazing a little bit. Christian Gonzalez might be the best cornerback in football when it's all said and done at the end of the year. Here's some of these numbers real quick. Jamar Chase, 3 receptions for 14 yards. Garrett Wilson, 3 receptions for 18 yards. Tyreek Hill, 0 receptions for an interception, 0 yards. Jalen Waddle, 1 reception for 15 yards. Devontae Smith, 2 receptions for 22 yards. A.J. Brown, 4 receptions for 47 yards. And I'll go back to the Bengals. If they can't collect the troops, they're going to be in deep shit. Like they're in some serious trouble.
I want to disagree so bad, but I can't. I want so badly to say we've seen the Bengals start off 0-1, and both years they made it to the AFC Championship, one of which all the way to the Super Bowl. I want to say so badly that there's no reason to panic because Taylor somehow still manages to win certain games when it matters, and he has all the pieces in place. But Rob is right. It is time to panic, and it's not an overreaction. It's simply calling it what it is. The league is continuing to expand. The salary cap is only growing. You have Deshaun Watson to thank for all of these big contracts, right? He went out there and got a $230 million contract fully guaranteed. So now there are guys that have done more than he has that are demanding more than what he's gotten. You have a Jamar Chase that out of a Justin Jefferson, out of a CeeDee Lamb, out of a Amon-Ra St. Brown, out of all of these, the highest paid receivers, Jamar Chase is the only one that at least made it to the Super Bowl. So you have these guys demanding money, but where he loses leverage is he still has 2 years on his contract. When you're fighting injuries and you still have time, when you're fighting injuries and you have time left on your contract, and you have more than enough time left on your contract, that is no reason to pull the stunt that you're pulling. Before you know it, Rob, we're going to see guys, as soon as they get drafted, one preseason game, they're going to catch one ball and hold out and say, nope, pay me now. I'll prove that I'm one of the best, so go ahead and pay me. And that's where we're headed. And so because of that, it's most definitely time to panic, because Higgins, Chase, one of the two are out for sure. I still wouldn't be surprised if Higgins somehow starts generating some traction from another team this year. But it's most definitely time to panic, because the team that we once knew and loved, the team that was Pat Mahomes' kryptonite, the team that sent him home in his own backyard, even with the new overtime rule changes, that team is long gone, and I don't see this team making it back to the Super Bowl.
On top of that, you have to look at how their last year and how their defense panned out. They were 7th worst against the rush, and their 2nd worst overall defense with 374.6 yards per game. The problem that presents itself is you have no DJ Reader clogging up the interior of the defensive line. You also have an offense that guys that don't want to really play. I'm going to tell you right now, someone's going to have to get paid, and the other guy's going to have to get traded, because T. Higgins, like, you're going to have to pay one. You can't pay both. They do not have the money to do it. So I see Jamar Chase eventually getting paid. Who knows when it's going to happen? But the Bengals, and that front office and the ownership group is notoriously cheap, and now they're stuck in a corner that they're at a crossroads. If I gotta pay T. Higgins or I gotta pay Jamar Chase, either way, I'm stuck in a pickle, because if I don't pay one of them, our offense falls apart. And when you combine that with how poor your defense is, because Trey Hendrickson is the only defensive pass rusher. I mean, you can see him during the game getting pissed off as hell that he can't get to the quarterback, and to a quarterback, by the way, in Jacoby Brissett, which I have to highlight. If the Patriots can get average quarterback play, which we've been lamenting to, a guy that can just not turn over the football, which, by the way, Jacoby Brissett has the lowest turnover rate, which I would like to see what the updated stats are now. Before this game, he had the lowest turnover rate ever. And who he was tied with? Aaron Rodgers. But Aaron Rodgers just threw an interception against the 49ers. So I'm curious if Jacoby Brissett is number one now. So I know I just went on a tangent, but they're in trouble.
You may be right. So I'm kind of where T was say he wanted to be at, where I don't think the Bengals are in trouble just yet. I think they are far and away not the team that we saw that made it all the way to the Super Bowl, the team that pretty much used to give Patrick Mahomes fits. But I also don't think they are as bad as what they showed in week one. I think things are going to improve there, and things have to improve. Otherwise, a certain prediction that I had made last season, saying that if there was not improvement this year, Zach Taylor may be on the hot seat as head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals.
And I think he's a good head coach. I think he's a pretty damn good head coach. That makes no sense for him to be fired.
Yeah. You can be a good head coach, but if you're not performing, ownership will try to look elsewhere, and he got to get it together overall. But that is enough of talking about the New England Patriots. Matter of fact, who do they have next week? So I could be sure.
Doesn't matter. 2-0. Don't matter. 2-0. Chalk it up.
All right. So if we come back here next week and they're 1-1, remember Rob said 2-0.
You know what? I'll make it even bolder when we're 3-0, because the Jets ain't beating us either. Aaron Rodgers looks really shaky, and if he's going to go against a similarly stacked defense.
Well, I want to see Christian Gonzalez versus Garrett Wilson. So
we already seen that. You put him in a damn box.
All right. Well, that is not the only game that happened in week one that we were going to talk about. Unfortunately for me, as the Giants fan of this podcast, we have to unfortunately talk about the disaster that was the New York Giants versus the Minnesota Vikings at MetLife Stadium on the celebration of the team's 100th season, with the 100 greatest Giants of all time in person at the stadium, for the team to be destroyed 28-6 by a Sam Darnold-led Vikings team. And guys, I let y'all talk the majority of the time in the last segment because y'all are Patriots peoples. This was a great win for you. But I got to take lead on this one real quick as someone who almost put his remote through his TV while watching this game. Actually, I was at work watching it, so more like I put my laptop through my computer at work. This was an all-around disaster. And I mean it on all fronts, offense, defense, and special teams. And before the pundits come on and the Daniel Jones apologists come on and say the same excuses that they always have, whether it be the offensive line or it be the receiving group, I just want to show y'all something. The Giants' offensive line allowed 10 pressures and 1 sack that they were responsible for the entire game. The entire game. Now, there was 5 sacks in the game. 4 of them are because of Daniel Jones. Either because he held the ball too long or he literally ran into the arms of a defensive player. On the defense, and y'all have probably saw this because I put it in our Discord chat, our $30 million a year pass rusher can't get to the quarterback. Not only did he get to the quarterback, he actually ran into his own man on a stunt where he had a free shot at Sam Darnold. Our 5th overall pick in Kayvon Thibodeau 2 years ago seems like he wasn't even playing at all. I will not get on Deonte Banks for how he performed against Justin Jefferson because Justin Jefferson is arguably one of, if not the best receiver in the league right now. And to still only give up 4 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown, you know what? You didn't die. You survived that. Cool. Special teams. Why did we not have a backup punt returner? Why is it that our kick and punt returner in Gunnar Olszewski gets hurt, re-aggravates his injury in warm-ups out of all times, and you put in Darius Slayton, who never returned a punt in his career in the NFL, and I'm pretty sure he didn't even do one in Auburn during his college career. So all of that together came up to an absolute disaster where we could not move the ball and we could not stop the ball at all, whether it be in the pass game or if Dexter Lawrence wasn't on the field in the run game. And before anybody brings up the receivers also averaged 4 yards of separation in that game, which was, I think, 12th out of all the teams that played in week 1. It's an absolute sign that something needs to change. And that something, to me personally, is Daniel Jones at this point. I have tried to defend Daniel Jones. I have tried to defend this Giants team. But we need a new quarterback there. And if not, he's going to cost at least one job. It's going to be either Brian Daboll gets fired, who is another good coach, in my opinion, who sometimes just makes terrible play call decisions, which we can talk about later, or Joe Shane, who I do believe is doing a good job of rebuilding this team, even though everybody wants to shit on his draft classes already, even though his first class is just going into their 3rd year now. But I've ranted long enough. Rob, T, any thoughts y'all want to share on this topic?
I think y'all seriously need to figure out in terms of, like, are you going to give your head coach a Nobel Peace Prize? Because the fact that he was able to make the playoffs with Daniel Jones should be studied. You have a quarterback that, honestly, he just turns his brain off when he plays football. But also, like, does your front office do the same thing? Because you paid that quarterback. Is it the same front office that paid him that you currently have?
Here's the thing, and it's not that I want to make an excuse, but I understood the reasoning for paying him. Because 2 years ago, when we were in 2022, the plan was to sign Saquon to a long-term deal and to franchise tag Daniel Jones. Unfortunately, part 1 of that plan did not work, as Saquon and his representatives kept rejecting every single offer that the Giants were giving them. So they had to go to a plan B, which was to sign Daniel to a 4-year deal with an escape hatch after this season. which I have been on record saying that out of all things they could have done for a deal, this was not the worst thing possible. But everybody has to deal with the unfortunate part of if it didn't work out, which we are seeing live.
Yeah, you're reaping what you sow. You let Saquon Barkley, who just had 3 touchdowns in his debut against the Eagles. Like you're reaping every bit of what you sow. This Giants team, let's just call it as we see it. And this is really all I have for the Giants, because you kind of broke down everything. We're gonna have to have a serious conversation that you either got to put someone else in as your starting quarterback, or just embrace the tank, because it's either you or the Panthers that are gonna have the number 1 overall pick. Calling it now.
Yeah, I would just shoot a quick text to Ty Coughlin to find out what he did to get the Patriots numbers 2 times. Anything short of that is just abysmal at this point. I mean, the guy's a genius. He knew what he did. Eli Manning had a far significantly less line than Daniel Jones has. So I love what you aforementioned, that there's no more excuses. The excuses are done. I feel like we watched Daniel Jones hit a top speed of 20 miles an hour. We watched him break a 70-yard run. Then, like Rob said, his brain cut off. But for some reason, that play seemed to be the driving force of, you know what, this is the guy. We've seen enough glimpses to believe that we have a better shot than not of trusting this guy than to finding our next guy or bringing somebody else in and training the next man up. And if that's what you want to stick with, then his feet need to be held to the fire. What I feel, again, I'm a diehard Patriots fan, but I was born and raised in Detroit. I still live in Detroit. So for that, I want to shout out the New York Giants for just gift wrapping Jabril Peppers to us, because I've been following him since his days at Michigan. So we appreciate the little gift wrap present. But anyway, I feel that Daniel Jones can turn into an early stage Matt Stafford if they're not careful. Because my time here in Detroit, I've seen how there were so many receivers whose careers just went down the drain just because they didn't have the ability at the quarterback position when it mattered the most. The offense was not firing on all cylinders. And I'm afraid for Malik Neighbors. I'm not comparing him to Calvin Johnson by any stretch. But when I watched the personal highlights of him in one-on-one, not in zone, not in schemes, not in a 4-2-5, not in, rolling coverage, or when there's a shade defender, overhanging defender, a guy dropping to the seam, not letting nobody get behind him. When I watched him in premium one-on-one matchup, the kid is a freaking monster. The kid is unstoppable. And if it were up to me, he would have been taken before Marvin Harrison Jr. That's just me. I get the namesake, I get the nepotism, I get it, and I'm not against it. But Malik Neighbors, if he had a dad that played for the coach with Peyton Manning, he would have been taken as the first receiver off the board, and it's not a question. What I saw from him and his ability to create space, his ability to stop on the dime, his crisp route running ability, both him and Brian Thomas, LSU knows how to develop receivers. So I need for Malik Neighbors not to be the lone LSU receiver that does not get the benefit here of having a quarterback that makes him look stellar. Brian Thomas looks stellar. Justin Jefferson, it doesn't matter who he has at quarterback. He's going to look stellar. Jamar Chase, when he's healthy, stellar, right? Terrace Marshall, another one. He has the ability to look stellar. What we can't have is Malik Neighbors not being a product of the same environment that everybody else got to reap. And that is wide receiver LSU being dominant and being able to present receiver talent. I think that it is time to move from Danny Jones, but I am always the guy that says, you know what, if I'm a GM, I'm pulling you in and I'm saying you got one final shot. I'll tell you what the final shot is. Let me see your stats by week 8. Let me see your stats by the end of the year. Put some flame underneath his feet and stop making him think that he's not expendable. Because when you have a quarterback that does not have any pressure from the backup, there's no reason for him to excel. If you're not convincing me that somebody is going to make my ass work for the starting position, I'm going to come out lackadaisical and I'm going to get paid, damn it, because you don't have anybody that's gunning for my spot.
The problem is if they don't make this decision, just like you lamented towards that 20 miles per hour run, the 7-yard run, what ended with that 70-yard run? He tripped over himself and fumbled the football. So you're at a crossroads symbolically of what you're going to do. Are you going to replace that quarterback or keep that quarterback in and fumble everything else away?
Well, here's the thing. And Giants fans are calling for it. And if you really read the tea leaves, it seems like coaching is getting ready to do it too. I think Daniel Jones has until after week 3. If there's no improvement at all, I don't want DeVito in the game because DeVito's here's the thing.
Put the Italian in.
I don't want Tommy DeVito in the game because DeVito is another one who runs into sacks, another one who holds the ball way too long. When he sets his feet and just launches it, he can make plays. But the problem with him is that he gets too happy with wanting to run the ball and runs into defenders the same way Daniel Jones did this game. Oh my gosh, Rob. I'd much rather put in Drew Lock because I can live with the bad interceptions more than I can live with running into sacks and creating your own negative plays. I say Daniel Jones has until week 3 because we have the Commanders this coming week. So it's going to be him against Jaden Daniels. And then we have the Cleveland Browns who played like the Cleveland Browns of old. After that, you really need to seriously question whether or not you want to put this man behind center against the Dallas Cowboys because of the injury clause that is also in his contract. If he gets injured and does not pass a physical next season, then his salary next year gets guaranteed. And we're not trying to have that. If we're going to part ways with Daniel Jones, I want that split to be complete and finalized for us to get a new quarterback that Brian Daboll can mold into probably the next Josh Allen, but probably not going to be because Josh Allen is a freak of nature, but something along those lines. And I can't have this 6-year experiment of hoping that Daniel Jones is the man continue because now, like we said, there's no more excuses for this team. Everything you need is finally there. You have an offensive line that actually gave you time. I looked at the all 22 and I was like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3. He had time in the pocket. You have a wide receiver 1. You have a trio of wide receivers that you can use and 2 tight ends that are actually not bad in the pass game. What's the excuse now?
Let me ask you this. Why is Daniel Jones getting the leniency? I asked because we had the same quarterback for 2 decades. We tried Mac Jones out, made the Pro Bowl as a rookie, and he significantly regressed every single season. So there was no need to entertain it. You're not the guy. Get out next, right? Period, point blank. There was no entertaining the discussion. So from Eli to seemingly Danny Jones, why is he getting the leniency that other teams will be like, we thought you were the guy. You're not the guy. We're sure shit not going to keep giving you chances. Why do you feel Daniel Jones is getting a chance that other front offices wouldn't give their quarterback?
It's 2 things in my opinion. One, it's John Mara, because John Mara has this thing where if you are one of his guys, you will have chance after chance after chance. Dave Gettleman was here 2 years longer than what he should have been as GM because he was a John Mara guy. You have Eli Manning, who was there kind of 1 year before, like 1 year longer than what he should have. Honestly, I think he should have retired the year before just because the regression was obvious there. And if it was up to him, we would have thrown a bag at Saquon Barkley, got him whatever he wanted, and tried to sign Daniel Jones to a long-term deal without all of the added stipulations to get out of it. I think if it was up to Shane 100% and Daboll 100%, and they were able to execute their plan, there'd be a whole new quarterback here. Who would it be? I have no idea.
I really don't think, and there's one thing that's about GMs that are successful is they're very cutthroat. You don't have that. If you go look at the tape behind the scenes in the Hard Knocks, it seems like you don't have a GM that has quote unquote balls. Like I just don't think he has the gunyans to be, I guess, adamant about what he wants to do. Just like he'd seen, like, was it John Mara, your owner? He's in there asking, what are we gonna do with Saquon Barkley? And he's basically like, like, you need to have conviction. You need to have conviction in what you want to do, what you want to construct. Because if I have a GM, that's basically the catalyst of how everything's constructed on my team, and you don't have just have the ability to just basically go at someone's throat. I don't know if that's someone I would want to keep around.
No, you're absolutely right, but we have to see how the rest of this season goes. Honestly, if it continues to be this train wreck and no changes are made, there's going to be a chance that there are 2 open positions with the Giants and a new head coach and a new GM, which honestly, I don't even think that that's going to work.
Bill Belichick. You got a GM and a head coach right there.
I don't trust Belichick's drafting, no offense.
It's not a matter whether you trust it or not, because You should be able to sell his freaking tickets any bit away because him being a Giant again.
Don't trust this first round drafting. Give him everything else. Most of our Pro Bowlers are never drafted in the first round.
True. But with that said, we're going to go right back into AFC East action because we got to talk about Thursday Night Football that is coming up. The Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins are facing each other once again, and both of them had their storylines. Both of them came away with victories in their games. Tyreek Hill had a whole situation before kickoff, and now we get to see them, if you have Amazon Prime, unfortunately, in Thursday Night Football action. Guys, y'all are the AFC East people here. Who do y'all have taken this, and what are you expecting to see from both teams?
I think the biggest storyline is this. Can Tua Tagovailoa get that monkey off his back? The monkey that is the Buffalo Bills. The kryptonite is that Josh Allen and that Buffalo Bills. Now, my biggest thing is this. The Buffalo Bills do not have Stephon Diggs anymore. But it seems that really wasn't the problem so far. That they're able to kind of spread it out. Keon Coleman looks like a stud. And it seems like it's a little bit more of a balanced team. Cook, hell of a running back. My biggest thing is this. The defenses for these teams, I think it's just going to be whoever can deliver the punch because both defenses gave up 120 plus rushing yards in the first week. That's not good because you got two rushing attacks that can probably replicate that. So I think the biggest thing is I'm gonna pick the Bills, but it's only because I haven't seen Tua really get that monkey off his back.
I'm taking the Bills too. I only have one personal gripe against Josh Allen, and that will forever be his comments against the overtime rules because he ends up getting overtime rules changed, which benefited Pat Mahomes to win another Super Bowl ring. Then the very next year, you get the Kansas City Chiefs dead to rights. You get them this past season out of Arrowhead. The road to the AFC, the road to the Super Bowl always went through Arrowhead since Pat Mahomes was a starter. You get them out of Arrowhead, you have them dead to rights, and then you just turn into a shell of yourself. Outside of that, the man is still a stud. Regular season, the man is still a stud. He still figures out ways to make it happen. We've been seeing a trend of the key player being out and teams not missing the beat. Matt Judon, pass disruptor. He's out, no big deal. Keon White comes in with 2.5 sacks. CMC, right, out. Don't even notice that he's not there. If you were listening to the radio and they didn't say who the running back was, you hear somebody get $120 on the ground against the New York Jets, you're going to assume it was CMC, right? You see all of these teams that when the most prominent person is out, Stephon Diggs gone, Gabe Davis gone, running back gone. You just assume that Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid, they're not going to be able to carry this offense. And somehow they still manage to do it. Josh Allen still makes plays happen both in the air and with his feet. To Rob's point, every rose has a thorn, and this is just that thorn in the side of Miami. I see, even with their surefire loaded offense, they have an offense that's predicated on disrupted plays. You have to bank on a disrupted play. You have to bank on the Tyreek Hill finding, a disguised coverage and finding and just sitting somewhere with this 4.2 speed. You're banking on that. Without that, the offense doesn't get going. That first half was pretty atrocious for both teams. But for Buffalo, my only question is, who's going to step up in Milano's place? Replacing your Mike is the hardest thing to do in football, and I will argue that with anybody. The eyes and ears, the heartbeat of that defense is so freaking hard to replace. Somehow they made it happen against the Cardinals, but that's the Cardinals, okay? You now have the Dolphins. Can you still have that focus? Can you still have that heartbeat? Can you still make the plays that need to be made, make the adjustments on the line? Can you still perform the twists and the stunts? Can you still fill the gaps when they need to be filled as a linebacker? Can you still go out there and make adjustments on the fly? And if you, as a backup, can make that happen, then the sky's the limit. But regardless, I still got the Buffalo Bills taking this one.
I think we're 3 for 3 here because I have Buffalo taking this one. I do not trust Miami. Sorry, Sammy, if you're ever watching this. I don't trust Miami against Buffalo at all. I think the only saving grace that they have is that this game is not playing not being played in November or December, because we all know what tends to happen with the Dolphins around that time. But it is going to be a question mark of who is going to step up and lead that Bills defense at the end of it. Right now, according to their depth chart, it's Terrell Bernard that's listed as their starting middle linebacker. And as someone whose team had to take 12 years almost to replace their middle linebacker, it's a hard position because you are the play caller. You are the one that is having to set up the defense. You're got to be the first person to know like what's going on. And that is a very difficult role. But at the same time, I'm also wanting to see how the Bills DB room manages against the Miami Dolphins wide receivers, because that's going to be the matchup that I'm paying attention to.
It's going to be very interesting, though. Well, sorry for cutting you off, because a lot of that Bills defense, I know they were older, but that's a lot of leadership that walked out that door. Like, you don't have that anymore. You don't have a Poyer, who's now on the opposite. That might be something to kind of lament to. You have a Poyer on that Miami defense now, and he's going to know how to expose some of the things on the Bills roster. The only reason I'm really picking the Bills is just because I haven't seen Tua get that monkey off his back.
Yeah, he hasn't gotten that monkey off his back, but it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. I'm specifically going to pay attention to Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford, their two starting cornerbacks, because y'all have a tough time against Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. But it is going to be a very interesting game. You can catch that on Thursday night using Amazon Prime on Prime Video. But, guys, that is all the time that we have for today here. Thank you so much for tuning in to The Gridiron. Once again, brought to you by House Call Sports. Again, I am Justin. That is Rob. That is T. Do us a favor. Check out all the links down below in our description. Drop us a like and a follow or a subscribe. And we'll see you guys next week.